Okay, we know that you might be sick of hearing about spooky good deals this Halloween weekend, but we've chosen this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to bring back one of our most popular specials. The WagerTalk Fill Your Cart is back. This Friday, October 29th, Saturday, October 30th, and Sunday, October 31st, you will get a 31% discount on everything you fit into your cart. Whether it's a daily package, a one-day all access, a 3, 7, or 30 package, a full season of college hoops, or a full 12 months from your favorite handicapper, you'll save 31% with coupon Halloween31. You can fill your goodie bag as many times as you want until the clock strikes midnight on Sunday. Finish off October with this ghostly good deal and fill your cart wisely.
All right, guys, welcome in. Happy Friday here as we get you ready for Week 9 college football and a couple of games last night. You got a few more tonight, but a loaded slate here over the weekend. And our 4 games that we're going to break down are going to start a little SEC. We're going to be out in the Pac-12. We're going to talk a little ACC. We got all sorts of games here to break down for you with 3 of the absolute best on tap. And you can find all of these gentlemen at WagerTalk.com, including Mr. Steve Merril hitting leadoff here tonight. Rob Veno right in the middle of the order. And, of course, hitting cleanup, Mr. Dave Cokin here on a College Football Friday. And Steve Merril, my man, what's happening here? Wasn't sure if you were playing anything last night, but it's been a good college football season along with your top 25 videos. For college football have been hitting it out of the park. No pun intended, man. What do you got for us this weekend?
Well, you're mixing up your sports. The just a bit outside video is what was hitting it out of the park this summer, the free baseball. But yeah, the college football top 25 preview is up right now. The 3 biggest games this weekend in college football. We're actually going to touch on one of them, Joe, here on the show in a moment. But I've got the other ones there as well. And then, of course, NFL Fade the Public video will be up later tonight, hopefully, if I can find a nice producer to do it for me. By the way, NBA 9-2 start. Let's not forget about pro basketball. Number 1 ranked this year at WagerTalk.com. I've got 2 NBA best bets tonight. Ooh. And Rob Veno's on, so not 25 each. I did 2 for 29, a little bit more than a 2-for-1 special, but I knew Rob Veno would approve. So 2 strong NBA best bets tonight on Friday, 9-2 on the season.
Yeah, Rob Veno has pretty much tuned your ass out like months ago, but that's all right. Rob Veno, what is going on, my friend? Welcome in. How was the night last night? I know we talked NBA, we talked some college football last night. What do you got locked and loaded here for this weekend for us?
Yeah, weekend for starters, Joe. NFL 5% play up and available right now, WagerTalk.com. You know, it's kind of strange to have 2 that I could have chosen from. I played 2 games pretty strong earlier in the week, and then I had a choice which one I was going to use as the 5%. Both of those plays are actually up 5% blue chip, 4% best bet. You can find them both up at WagerTalk.com. Real quick, Steve, you have my approval again to use my money to purchase your package. And last night, I was on the wrong end of that NFL total, Joe. Gee whiz. And little Murphy's Law going on the last couple of days. If it can go wrong, it goes wrong. But to have those 2 drives that ended the game end the way they did and keep that one under the total, fortunate for under players, not so fortunate for guys like myself. But this weekend looks really, really good. So we look for a big bounce back.
Yeah, it should be good. Actually, a couple of interesting games here tonight. But you mentioned a 5% play in the NFL, up and loaded, guys, at Rob's page over at Wager Talk. And Dave has got himself a 5% play as well. We're talking about a 28-10 on all 5% plays going back to 2019, guys. 17-4 in football, 12-2 on his 5% plays in college football. So when they come around, pay attention. Dave, I know that's locked and loaded. You've also been doing good NHL. What else you got in store for us this weekend?
Well, I just posted 2 NFL games, and I'll have to find out what Rob has for his 5%. And for his sake, considering the way my NFL has gone lately, for his sake, he should hope that I'm on the opposite side, because the NFL hasn't been good. Everything else has been real good. College football, just smoking it the last 3 weeks. I had Troy last night, 4% play. easy winner on the spread. I did have a 1% money line play. It was around plus 700. Almost got that. It wasn't that far from it. In fact, had the Troy coach not mismanaged the clock and decided to ignore analytics in the fourth quarter, Troy might have pulled that game out. But I was happy with that. I had 2 NHL games. They both won. So it's going real well right now. I've got 6 more college games tomorrow, including the 5% play. I did not play the baseball tonight. I did not play any hockey tonight. And NFL, I'll be posting a free play video after this show is done. And the other selection will be available as well. And I think that's enough on the promotion.
Think that covers it there. Absolutely. And to the coach's fault. To his credit, though, I mean, he was celebrating by headbutting his players that he forgot there might actually be, a fake punt somewhere else. But that's all right. No big deal there.
No, I don't. The fake punt, nobody expected that fake punt, which is when they work. That was a ballsy decision by the Coastal Carolina coach, because if they don't get that first down, there's a good chance they lose the game.
Yep.
So that was a great gamble. But the Troy coach took a 5-yard penalty. He decided to call a timeout.
Right.
Yep.
And on a 4th and short near midfield. And I assumed, well, they're taking the timeout because they've decided to go for it. Then he goes out and punts. And it's like, wait a minute, you just used up a timeout to save 5 yards on a punt, and then the guy bombs the ball into the end zone because they were with the win. That was a bad coaching job by the Troy coach last night. I really thought his team had a chance to win that game, but I'll take the point spread win. I'm happy with that.
Hey, man, well, that's what happens when you go around headbutting your players there without a helmet on. Unbelievable. All right, guys, we're going to start SEC. Big game coming up this weekend. Let's take a look, Robert. There it is. Ole Miss taking on Auburn here. A little SEC West play. Pick'em is what it opened up as. A 66 for a total here. And Steve, I'll come to you. We've got Ole Miss second in division, Auburn third. Of course, we know Alabama's at the top here. But which one of these two teams do you like? A true pick'em in your mind?
Well, Joe, one of the reasons to subscribe to WagerTalk TV, of course, is to see all these great shows and not forget about them. But another reason is to click that bell, because you get instant alerts when new shows and videos are posted. And we did get my college football top 25 video up last night. And I mentioned in that video that my power ratings favored Auburn by 4. The line was currently 2.5, and I liked Auburn with that line value. Well, now, as of Friday, the line is 3. And 3, of course, is the most key number in all of sports betting. When it comes to football, there's about a 9% chance Auburn wins this game by exactly 3. So we did lose a little bit of line value. Obviously, that opening number of pick, like you said, was way too low. But the situational setup here still does favor Auburn, even though we've lost a little bit of line value. Now that's sitting at -3 instead of 2.5 or less. First of all, Auburn has the bye week. I think that's the big difference in this game because, first of all, Auburn has a bye, extra prep, extra rest. But then on top of that, not only does Ole Miss not have a bye, but it's a very difficult scheduling situation for them. This is their 5th straight game in the month of October. And let's look who they've played since they've come into October: at Alabama, Arkansas, at Tennessee, LSU. And they've actually won 3 straight since that Alabama game. It's so hard to have your A game each and every week. I think the setup here is pretty good for Auburn. And even at -3 or less, we still get some line values. My power ratings make it -4.
All right. And what do you think here? Are you giving the edge to Auburn, Rob? What do you think? What do you think we're going to get here? Just seems like a brutal schedule here for Ole Miss this year.
No doubt. Steve just pointed out all the problems with the Ole Miss schedule and the good news with the Auburn schedule. I'll speak from a totals perspective here, Joe. I really wanted to look under 66 and a half here. Because of the injuries at wide receiver to Mississippi the last 2 weeks, with no Jonathan Mingo, with no Braylon Sanders, they've turned to the run game and they've been really good at it. It's gotten them wins, but it's only gotten them 31 points, which is very un-Ole Miss-like. And when you're looking at 66 and a half, you probably want to see Ole Miss get a couple more than that. However, I stopped in my tracks real quickly from doing that because I happened to be on this game last year, And I went back just to make sure my memory was right. And it was at my age. Sometimes it's not, but it was this time. Auburn, with a different coaching staff, right, with Gus Malzahn at the helm last year, they played this game, the fourth game of the season, COVID year, Lane Kiffin with Matt Corral, the new offense. And Auburn decided we're going to put a light box up there, 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage within 3-5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and we're going to just drop. And you're going to have to run it or dink and dunk all the way down the field. And on the other side, they were committed to just running the football and shortening the game. They executed that game plan perfectly. I mean, there's the examples here. Auburn scores 5 touchdowns in that game. 4 of those touchdowns were between 10 and 14 plays, between 4 minutes, 4 seconds, and 5 minutes, 53 seconds, between 4 and 6 minutes on 4 touchdown drives. Chew up clock, lots of plays. That's what we want to do. They used up almost 22 minutes to score 5 times. On the Ole Miss side, they scored 4 TDs. 3 of those were 10, 13, and 16 play drives. Again, Auburn executing exactly how they wanted to. Those drives took between 3.5 and 5.5 minutes. That team took 14 minutes to score their 28 points. Ole Miss also went all the way down the field. 2nd and goal, got picked at the Auburn 4. Point to the story here is they scored 63 points, Joe, in that game, executing exactly the way they wanted to. Everything went right. I would expect Brian Harsin and his staff to probably do the same thing. But the difference here is that at this point in time, Lane Kiffin and Matt Corral have been staring at this umbrella defense so much, so often, about 4 times, 5 times this year already, that they've learned and adjusted to. And maybe adjusted to not having Mingo and Sanders for this game. We'll see. It'll be the 3rd time around without them. But over the last 2 weeks, 279 rushing yards, 266 rushing yards against teams with worse rush defenses than Auburn has. Auburn will probably cut that number down a little bit. I'm afraid to play under 66.5, even with the injuries, even with the fact that Auburn will probably try to execute the same game plan again, because last year they did it, and probably the game should have landed 70 if Ole Miss doesn't get picked on the 4-yard line. So we'll see how it goes. I don't have a real good lean on the side, but total-wise, thought I had something. I don't think I do now.
All right. Well, we're going to see what's going on. Certainly perception reality with totals in Ole Miss this year, that's for sure. Dave, we got to go back to Chad Kelly and Hugh Freeze the last time Ole Miss actually beat Auburn 2015. It's an interesting quarterback battle here, too. What do you think we're going to see?
Well, I would think Auburn's going to look at the game film from last year and say, let's do this. Let's run the ball. And, Ole Miss doesn't have a great rushing defense this year either. I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's like 180 yards per game they're allowing on the ground. And that sets up well for Bo Nix, because when Bo Nix doesn't have to win the game for you, Auburn's pretty good. And there's a revenge motive for Ole Miss. I'm sure they're looking at the film from last year and say, boy, we could have had this one. I mean, the go-ahead touchdown was with like a minute to go. And Ole Miss really could have won that game. I power rated this at Auburn 4. So I was a little surprised the game opened where it did. I think it's adjusted to where it ought to be right now, which is right around a field goal. I think Auburn wins. I don't have enough confidence to lay the points, though. And I do think it's going to be an exciting game. But I will be curious to see if Auburn is willing to go with the same game plan they did last year. Sometimes coaches don't want to go with the prior coach's game plan, even if it worked. And they want to do their own thing. But to me, the recipe is pretty simple here for Auburn. Establish the run. And if you do that, you're probably going to walk off the field with a win.
Yeah, it could be a big day for Bigsby for sure against that Ole Miss defense there. And 2 quarterbacks that can run on both sides, too. So we'll see how that goes, guys. Ole Miss taking on Auburn in the SEC. Let's head out to the Pac-12 for this next game. UCLA, Chip Kelly and the Bruins taking on Utah. 61 as a total for the Open. Utah opened up as a 4.5-point favorite as well there. So, Rob Veno, I'll come to you. UCLA has certainly had its ups and downs thus far with Chip Kelly, but Utah has as well. Utah seems to be playing really good football right now. Do you trust them to lay a number here at home?
Well, this is tough, Joe, because it could be viewed as one of the three most important games of the weekend as far as that division goes and what the result brings here. For UCLA, they have to win to stay in the South Division race. If they lose, they're eliminated. End of story. For Utah, if they win, they then own tiebreakers over Arizona State, UCLA. They're in real good shape if they win this ball game. So there's a lot at stake here. I think last week we might have had the Utah game last week. I think I remember doing Utah Oregon State on this particular show, and pointed out at that time that the scheduling spot for Utah wasn't really a good one. They had just they switched quarterbacks to Cameron Rising. They had just started to get their feet under them. They get victories over South Division foes, USC, and then Arizona State to put themselves in a good position. Then you have to go on the road after two draining victories to play Oregon State in Corvallis with UCLA on deck, another South Division foe, which I just mentioned how important the game is. So it was tough. They played a good first half to get wrecked the second half. But the problem with them is how much rushing yardage they gave up in that game and how they were dominated at the line of scrimmage. UCLA can do that to you. So I think there's an edge for UCLA in that respect. I think Cam Rising has every opportunity here to light up the UCLA secondary. UCLA is a really good rush defense. They're very little in pass defense. Britton Covey and company, that wide receiving core. So if I had to look, I think I'm looking over the total. Nothing got played yet, but I think that's the way I look. Very important game. Don't know which way to go on side. I think I would have liked Utah at the original price, but it's all the way up to 6.5 now, Joe. In a game of this magnitude and this much importance, too tough for me to lay it with the favorite.
Yeah, I think they had their linebacker too got tossed for a targeting call there in the second half, which was a big problem. Almost 6.5 yards, Dave. A carry there. Utah's not. They can't do that against this UCLA team. So what do you think we're going to get from them?
All right, so first we'll look at UCLA. And they lost last week, had an early lead against Oregon, then basically got run out of the stadium. Then came firing back. And if it's not for an injury to DTR late in the game, a pretty good chance they force overtime and maybe get the outright win. But he got hurt, and they had to turn to the freshman Garbers to finish the game, and he threw a pretty bad pick, actually, and that was the end of that. Also in the game, by the way, UCLA, I think it's pretty clear they got screwed out of 3 points on a field goal that was ruled no good, and the kick was good. So UCLA is going to be a little bit pissed off, I would think, coming into this game. My original concern, and I think it was the reason the line was short and got bet up, was that Thompson Robinson did get banged up last week, and he didn't throw in practice the first 2 days, so there was some real concern as to whether he'd be available in this game. But he got upgraded to probable on Wednesday. He's playing, and he's awful good. So that's a plus for UCLA. Also, they've got a really good running back in Charbonnet, and Utah is not real good against the run. Look, it was a bad spot for Utah last week. I was all over Oregon State. That game wasn't as close as the final score indicates. Oregon State beat the snot out of Utah in that game. They killed them at the line of scrimmage, and it could have been worse. The special teams for Utah weren't good last week. I think there's advantages on the Bruins side here. I like teams with the rushing yardage stat profile that UCLA has here when they're underdogs. Line got to 6.5. Okay, I'm sold. I took the UCLA side plus the 6.5.
It's interesting, Steve, because when UCLA, the games that they have won, we're talking about 200 or more yards on the ground. If they don't do that well, they're about under 140 when they lose games. So they've got to be able to run the ball here against this Utah team for a chance. Do you think they can do that?
Yes, I mean, Utah has been a little bit above average, both run and pass defense. They've actually been a little bit stronger against the pass. UCLA does throw the ball well, though, still when they need to. 7.8 yards per pass play. What Utah doesn't do well is actually throw. Utah is the team that needs to run the ball more here, and that's the matchup that does concern me because UCLA's run defense has actually been solid this year, 95 yards per game, 3.2 yards per carry, and that's against opponents that average 4.3. So I actually think Utah might have a little bit of trouble running, and that's the team that really needs to be able to establish the run. But with all that said, I would still lean towards the Utes here at home, thin air and altitude. Utah had the bye coming into October. This is their fourth straight game, but UCLA has not had a bye since the second week of September. This is now their seventh straight game without rest, and they will be in that thin air and altitude. And after an emotionally close 34-31 loss against Oregon, and I've always said, letdowns happen more after tough, high-scoring losses than anything else. So I think the scheduling setup is favorable for Utah. There is some line value still. The look-ahead line was as low as 3 a week ago. As you mentioned, Joe, it opened in most books 4.5. It's now sitting 6.5. But my power ratings actually favor Utah by 7.5 in this game. So there's a little bit of line value as long as it stays at 6.5 or less. And I think the scheduling setup is favorable for Utah as well. So I lean towards the Utes in this game on Saturday.
All right, Utah averaging 5.3 yards a carry. We'll see if they can do better than that in the game here against UCLA on Saturday. In the meantime, where else? Let's head to the ACC, sort of, I think. Where are we going, Robert? Yes, there it is. BYU taking on Virginia in this one. BYU opens up as a 2.5-point favorite. Total is 64 in this one, Dave. And boy, oh boy, Virginia, if nothing else, that offense and Armstrong have been pretty darn impressive. BYU likes to run the ball. I don't anticipate they'll have a hard time doing that, but what do you think we're going to get here in this game?
Well, I mean, I think it's a bigger game for Virginia for one simple reason. It's Bronco Mendenhall returning to the Provo, where he coached successfully for many years. And Virginia doesn't have a look ahead. They've got a bye week coming up. And then after that, they've got a couple of really big games, but that's down the road. So I don't think there's a focus issue for Virginia here. And BYU just isn't that good. I've said this all year long. I mean, they got out-yarded by Arizona in what was a virtual home game here in Las Vegas because the crowd was all BYU. They've had I don't want to crush them. They've got some nice wins, but they're just not that good a football team. And the one time they went up against a really solid squad was at Baylor, and they were really never in that game. I mean, they just got destroyed in that game. And that was a game where, again, the final score was misleading because Baylor absolutely killed them. I think it's more meaningful to Virginia. And honestly, I think they're a little better football team. So I went with the Cavaliers in this game. And, I don't think it's a huge play, but I think Virginia's the right side.
Yeah, he had 5 10-win seasons, 11 bowl appearances when he was there, guys. 99-43. They certainly know him at BYU, Steve. It'll be interesting, a homecoming of sorts. But both teams, to Dave's point, they qualified for bowls last week. So, motivation-wise, go ahead.
One quick note. BYU's basically got their bowl. They know where they're going. It's just a matter of who they're playing. They are not going to be. They're out of the running for the New Year's Day bowl thing, and obviously the playoffs. So I wonder if that could be something that lessens their incentive a little bit. They already know where they're going bowling.
Yeah, it's a good motivation's interesting here, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, BYU's got Idaho State on deck and then Georgia Southern. So obviously this is a much bigger game than the next 2 weeks. But it's a huge game, obviously, as Dave said, for Mendenhall and the whole coaching family. He had a brother, he had a father that played at BYU, I believe. He grew up in Utah. As Rob Veno knows, he played 1 year at Snow College, community college, before transferring. So, yeah, it's a huge trip back for him. It's been 5 years since he's been back there. He's been in Virginia that long. It doesn't seem that long, but he's a great coach, and he is turning this Cavalier program around, Joe. And you mentioned about that offense, 96 points the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to overthink this one. I think the over is the way to play it. My power ratings favor BYU by 2. The line to open 2.5. It's still 2.5. There's been no movement on the side here. It's sitting right below that key number. So I'm going to stay off the side. I'm going to look at the over in this game between Virginia and BYU. Open 64. It's now 65. And as Dave said, BYU doesn't have a ton to play for. So if there is a little bit of complacency, I think that shows up more on the defensive side. Normally, that's where the lack of intensity hurts you. Virginia now 34 points or more in 3 straight, 30 or more in 5 of their last 6, 7 of their last 8. I think both teams can get in the 30-plus range here and get this one over 65.
Armstrong, Rob, he leads the nation in passing yards, just over 3,200. They are the number 1 offensive team in the ACC. I don't know that says much, but they are 4th also nationally, I believe, 540 yards a game here of total offense. So is BYU the defense to stop this team?
What we're going to see, and I guess this is why odds makers set up shop, right? Because I'll build a small case for under here. First thing is, Bronco Mendenhall had it put in his contract when he signed in Charlottesville, that he would never have to go back and play BYU. He didn't want this game, unbeknownst to him, that the prior administration had already scheduled something, and therefore he's involved in it. But there's been, a couple articles I read, there's nothing but handshaking, love for both sides. I think BYU, just the fact that it is Bronco Mendenhall, will be motivated here. This is a weird road trip at this time of season for a team like Virginia, who never sees altitude. And they're going to go all the way to Provo, Utah, and we'll see if they're gasping for air by the third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever. It's got nothing to do with their ACC hopes, right? I think what they're looking for is to try and win that Coastal. They're 2 games behind Pitt. They have a shot at Pitt. They're probably hoping that Pitt drops a game to North Carolina or somebody along the way. But it's really got nothing to do with anything except the players maybe wanting to win one for their coach. BYU's advantage in this game is the ground game, right? Virginia gives up like 200 yards a game on the ground. I think it's 198 point something. And when you have Tyler Algier, 5.1 a carry, and you have the dual threat ability of Jaron Hall, Virginia hasn't had a lot of success this year stopping the run against teams with dual threat quarterbacks. I know Jaron Hall's not Malik Cunningham, but that's just one of 2 or 3 that Virginia has faced this year, and they just haven't shut any of them down. So if you're BYU, you want to run the football, you want to shorten the game, and then play defense to try and stop Virginia, maybe some type of umbrella to keep Armstrong underneath. The problem you have with BYU and that run the football idea is that their center and their right tackle both banged up, and they still don't know if either one can go in this game. So that might hinder their running game a little bit. And their top wide receiver, Gunnar Romney, might be out of this game as well. So there's 3 key injuries to take a look at. I'll say this at the end here. Virginia, for all their offense, guys, they've played 8 games, and only 3 of those have exceeded 65 points this year. They've been way under 65, way more than they've been over. And they've played some crappy defenses. BYU, for what it's worth, has not played a single game over 65 this year. The highest they've gotten is 62. And they've played some quarterbacks that throw it around. Utah State throws it around. Hank Bachmeier throws it around. So I think maybe a small case here for the under 65.
All right, there you go. That's why you got to love this here, guys. Get a little bit from everybody there, and make the best decision for yourself. And I can't wait for this game. It's one of the more underrated games of the weekend. Let's take a look here, Robert. How about the 7-0 SMU Mustangs taking on the 6-1 Houston Cougars for a little American action, a little American athletic action here, Dave. This should be good. Maybe an awful lot of offense, but both of these teams have aspirations here to keep it rolling. Which one of these teams do you think? Can SMU go undefeated into Cincinnati when they got to play?
Well, they're hoping to. And SMU's done nothing wrong this season. But Houston hasn't done much wrong. Outside of blowing the lead in the Texas Tech game, they're perfect since then. And doing a little digging on the stats, you used to think of Dana Holgerson as just throw it all over the field. He doesn't do that with this team. They play a fairly controlled offense. And the defense for Houston has turned out to be somewhat surprising. They still have their moments where they're bad. But one thing they've done really well is defend the run. In conference play this year, their rushing defense has actually been outstanding. And SMU, well, let's just say that they're a better team when they're able to run the ball than if they have to pass the ball. I think the setup is somewhat favorable to Houston. Now, my power ratings give SMU a little bit of an edge, but it's not massive by any means. I mean, it projects as a close game. And I think the physical matchup might actually favor Houston. I think they can win at the point of attack. Also, look, let's face it, the pressure is on SMU. It's not on Houston. Houston could win out and get to the group of 5 or group of 6, whatever the hell they call it. But SMU has got their sights set on that right now. SMU is not going to make the playoffs, but if they were to somehow go unbeaten, they're playing in a major bowl game on January 1st. I think there's more pressure on SMU. I think SMU has a coaching edge, but I'm more matchups than anything else. I think the matchup favors the Cougars, and I do think it's going to be a thriller, but I'm going to give a slight lean to Houston to win this game.
All right, lean in Houston. It was so weird for them last week, Steve, with that game at East Carolina. It was supposed to be at noon. Didn't go off. They had weather delays all over the place. They had to go to overtime. Yeah, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. But they ended up winning it, and here they are against this SMU team, Sonny Dykes and company. So what do you think? What do you think of Houston's chances of getting it done here?
Well, Joe, I can tell you're excited about this 13-1 team. So I'm All-American.
Oh, God, what is he standing up? Sit your ass down. What are you? Oh,
there we go. See Joe Raineri. That's your Halloween.
Thank goodness you got pants on.
Early. Now we got to recenter. Look what I got to recenter myself.
I was getting really worried there for a second.
So I.
So yeah, I know. Joe knows where that goes. But the pants are always on. It's casual Friday, but not that casual here in the Merril household. Now, the Conference USA took a major blow. They lost, 6 teams to the American Athletics. So I'll never be able to do that again for Conference USA. So I had to get it into the AAC while I still could. Dave brought up a good point. I was going to touch on this as well, that these are 2 teams that are not nearly probably, or especially Houston, not nearly as good offensively as the 36.5 points a game would lead you to believe. This is a team that averages just 5.3 yards per play against opponents that allow 6.1. They're almost a yard per rush below average, half a yard per pass below average when you factor in the weak schedule of defenses they faced. Yet this total is 62.5. So I'm not big on playing unders nowadays in either college or pro football, even with Rob Veno's money. But I do think this one's a little pricey. Once again, SMU, 42.5 points a game. But as Dave said, they're facing a pretty good Houston defense that allows just 17 a game and just 4.5 yards per play. So I'll stay off the side. There was one look ahead as high as 4 last week before this game came out. It opened. My power ratings make it 2. It's now sitting pick 'em. So there is actually a little bit of line value now with Houston. I would have liked SMU at +4 if I could get in Joe Raineri's hot tub time machine and go back a week or so. But right now I'm going to stay off the side, and I'll look at the total under 62.5.
As long as you stay seated and don't get up, we're going to be just fine, Merril. You can hot tub time machine away. Rob Veno, talk to me here. I believe the quarterback for Houston, Clayton Tune, I believe, he'll be back. There were some hamstring issues there for him. So no excuses for either of these 2 teams here tomorrow. What do you think?
All right, so I'll build the small case for SMU for the Mustang alumni. Let's start by saying neither one of these schedules has been any good. And let's start by saying I might be a little bit biased because I've already cashed, or I will cash, an SMU season win total ticket over 6 wins. They're already 7-0. And it's a byproduct of the schedule. I mean, obviously, when playing that, I saw the early season and thought maybe they could get to this point. They've gotten here. But I think there's a matchup here that really does favor SMU. First off, let's say this. I don't know that Houston's defense, for all its numbers, can hold up to the type of offense that they're going to see here as far as balance is concerned. Sonny Dykes, air raid, I know. But the play calling is 49.4 run, 50.6 pass. You can't get any more balanced. And the 49.5% run isn't just for show. They run for 192 points a game, yards a game, 5.1 a carry. Ulysses Bentley and that running back crew are pretty good. So they incorporated in there something they hadn't done in the past. You talk about Clayton Tune, Joe, but nobody I don't think anybody killed the transfer portal the way SMU killed it, because Tanner Mordecai from Oklahoma has been fantastic this season. Grant Calcaterra, the All-American tight end 2 years ago at Oklahoma, has been fantastic this season. The Houston strength on defense, and again, college football throws these sack yards into your rushing totals. The strength of Houston has been their ability to sack the quarterback. 28 sacks for 192 yards. Again, against inferior competition, those 28 sacks. But if you weed all that out, their 2.9 per carry allowed becomes over 4 yards a carry allowed. So if you take their 28 sacks and then just look at the other side of the coin, Tanner Mordecai's dropped back 276 times this year. He's been sacked twice. So it's kind of which side of the fence you're going to stand on. Houston's got a great pass rusher. SMU's quarterback just never gets sacked. Doesn't get sacked because they can run the football a little bit, because they get the ball out quick. There's a lot of reasons why, but we're going to see who wins that matchup. I give the edge to SMU in that case. The Houston offense has been pedestrian. There's no other way to put it. 3.6 yards a carry against the schedule that they played. They should do a lot better than that. They really haven't. I think that, they both played a Big 12 team. I don't know that I want to throw that into this mix, because the Big 12 teams that they played just can't play defense. However, SMU did beat TCU. And as Dave mentioned, Houston did lose to Texas Tech. It comes down to this. Which matchup do you believe is better? The SMU high-powered offense over 500 yards a game against an untested Houston defense where balance is concerned. They haven't really played a team that can run and pass the way SMU can. Houston's pedestrian offense against SMU's average defense. I'll give a slight lean to SMU there. I think at pick 'em price, I'll take SMU.
Yeah, and listen, if SMU's defense can get off the field on third downs and give that offense a couple extra possessions, it'll be interesting to see where this game ends up here, guys. Houston taking on SMU should be a good one here over the weekend. And that brings us to, of course, a little bit of a recap here of the 4 games that we just went over. We'll send it around the horn and see if there's one of these games these guys may be leaning towards a little bit more than the other. And Steve Merril, I'll come to you first, my friend. Is one of these games maybe piqued your interest more than the others?
Yeah, first of all, happy Halloween to everybody out there. My costume is pumpkin head. See where I went with that one. Don't forget Halloween 31. Promo code Halloween 31 gets it done all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Halloween Sunday. You get 31% off every play and pick at WagerTalk.com. It's a great time to get a direct subscription. Hey, my number one NBA season is continuing with 2 strong best bets Friday night at WagerTalk.com. Big college and pro football card this weekend. Take a look at Auburn as long as the line stays -3 or less. Now, I did my top 25 preview video earlier on Thursday. It was 2.5. It's now up to 3 as we head into the weekend, but it's 3 -105. Maybe it'll drop back because I do think the public's going to come in Ole Miss on Saturday, and this is a nighttime game. Terrible spot for Ole Miss. 5th straight game in 5 weeks in October. Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, and now traveling to a tough Auburn team. Meanwhile, the Tigers, Auburn had last week off for a bye. I think that's the difference in this one. And we get some line value because my power ratings favor Auburn by -4. At 3 or less, Auburn Tigers worth a look, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
All right, there you go. Nobody, only Steve Merril would have a strap-on pumpkin there, Rob Veno. 5% NFL play ready to rock and roll for you. I know that at WagerTalk.com, but is there a game here that you might be leaning towards a little more than the others?
I honestly, Joe, I thought I watched my last variety show in 1979 until I came on here today and saw the Steve Merril variety show. Donnie and Marie, Merv Griffin, and Steve Merril. Mike Douglas and Steve Merril.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
George Burns, was that a variety show? I don't think so.
No.
Real quick
No,
here,
it wasn't.
Joe. I'm going to go to what, Dave?
I said no, it wasn't. I actually remember the show. So
yeah, I didn't think it was a variety show, but the others were, rest assured. Listen, I lost my train of thought. UCLA, Utah, over 60.5 points. Everybody on this panel pointed out some good reasons for it. I think UCLA can run the football. That's what they do best. That's what they intend to do. And then DTR throws off of that. And as Dave mentioned, I read an article where one of the wide receivers said on Wednesday he was throwing 20-yard passes with zip on it like nothing was wrong. So I don't see anything being wrong with him. injury-wise in this case. He is going to start. And then on the Utah side, since Cam Rising has taken over at quarterback, they were averaging 273 passing yards a game. So they can throw it around against a poor UCLA pass defense as well. Just go back and check the Fresno State game and a couple others. They don't defend the pass. So if you've got Utah, which is averaging 5-1 a carry, because Rising's a dual threat now, Charlie Brewer was not. Since he's entered the fold, 5.1 a carry is pretty good. I think both sides go up and down the field here, guys. I'll take over 60.5.
All right, going over there. Hurry up before Carol Burnett gets busted out here, Dave. I know you got a 5%. You got your 5% the college play up. It really was there. 28-10 all time since what? 2019, I believe, on your 5% plays. 12-2 in college football on your 5%. You got one available today. Tell me which one of these games are you leaning towards a little more than any others?
Well, I like my chances of the 5% college plays getting a 13-2. We'll see how that goes. It's been a good week. Look, UCLA fits, and I just won't get into the details of the stats because it'd be just giving away information that I don't want to give away. But UCLA fits a stat profile that I very much like when the team is an underdog. And it's as simple as that. And I don't think it's a bad matchup for them. Rising has certainly turned out to be a better quarterback than Brewer. I think the team believes in him more. And I think you'll get some decent things done as a dual threat quarterback against UCLA. But I got to tell you, Utah got destroyed in the trenches last week. Now, Oregon State's offensive line is better than UCLA's. Oregon State's offensive line is really good. And B.J. Baylor is a great back. But don't sleep on Charbonnet. This guy's an elite running back, in my opinion, in college football. And DTR, I believe, wills UCLA to an upset win on the road. Plus 6.5, I want the Bruins.
All right, taking the Bruins. There you go, guys. It's been one hell of a week here as we get ready for college football week number 9. So we'll take a recap here of what we got all week long in case you're just joining us. You got Tuesday there with Mejia, Brian, Leonard, and Dave. Of course, Wednesdays with Veno, Drew, and Ralph. And then, of course, the last couple of days, Teddy yesterday, as well as Steve Merril here today. The plays are up there. More importantly, best bets are up at WagerTalk.com for you right now. You heard Dave's got his 5% college football ready. You've got Rob Veno, NFL 5%er up. And, of course, Steve Merril, NBA, Major League Baseball. Of course, he's got NFL and college football. Make sure you check out those videos as well, guys, on our YouTube page. A lot of ways to make it a profitable weekend. Certainly, there's a couple right now that you can do. Go over there and make it a profitable week 9 in college football. Head over, visit Dave, visit Rob, and visit Steve. And then hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner. Make plans to join us again next week as we get ready for week 10 of the college football season. NBA tip-off show just a few minutes away. In the meantime, go ahead, Dave. You got something?
No, I don't have anything.
You were throwing a pen at me. All right, I thought you were throwing a pen at me. Hit that bell.
No, I just
before Steve gets up.
Scratch my nose. That's all.
Hurry up before Merril gets up again. Hit the bell. We'll see you guys next week. Good luck. Yeah, really. Good God, Merril with the props. Holy damn.
And they're off. Large fields and huge pari-mutuel pools result in the best opportunity to profit betting horse racing on Breeders' Cup weekend. WagerTalk's own horse racing expert, Sig, will be joined by handicapper and horse racing contest expert Sean Alvarez as they preview the entire field for Breeders' Cup weekend in the 2021 WagerTalk Breeders' Cup preview and wagering guide. You will receive in-depth analysis of every horse in the 14-race field from our experts, as well as selections and betting strategies from both Sig and Sean, all 14 Breeders' Cup races on Friday and Saturday. For a limited time, if you pre-order the guide before midnight on October 31st, you can save $10 off the regular price and pay only $29.99 for expert selections and analysis for every Breeders' Cup race. Don't hesitate, grab your 2021 WagerTalk Breeders' Cup preview and wagering guide now at wt.buzz/sig.